and top secret clearances. One of them revealed to me something that was rather shocking, and it was certainly not something I expected. And that was that the supposed myth of Roswell actually does also have a kernel of truth, a very serious thread of truth. And according to this source, who I write about in the last 7 pages of my book, it was actually not a flying disc from Mars, but rather was from the Soviet Union and was meant to be a hoax, a la the War of the World, something Stalin himself was familiar with and was rather obsessed with, according to this source, in terms of the ability to kind of make Americans feel panic. And so what my source told me was that he was one of the 5 engineers who worked to reverse engineer this flying disc out at Area 51. And that, of course, has caused much controversy in the press. Even the conspiracy theorists are upset with me. I received a letter from a group of them in England saying, you know, even we don't believe you. So it's obviously a hot-button topic, but more than anything, I stand by the veracity of this source who told me this, because he worked out there in the desert for across 3 decades working for the Atomic Energy Commission on many top secret projects, and he was certainly in place and position to work on the project that he said he did.
Annie Jacobsen, they had to close Area 51 for a time as a result of nuclear experiments. Can you explain what happened?
Yes, and I tell that story through the eyes of one of the security guards who worked out there. His name is Richard Mingus. He was a security guard at Area 51 by day, this elite group of just 4 or 5 men at a time that watched over the U-2 spy plane being developed. And by night, he would moonlight on some of the nuclear weapons tests that were happening next door. And one of the most astonishing tests to me was something called Project 57. And that was the idea. The Defense Department and the Atomic Energy Commission in 1957 wanted to know what would happen if one of their bombers carrying a nuclear weapon were to crash on American soil. Would a mushroom cloud explode, or would something else happen? And so they performed this test out there, which in essence is a dirty bomb test. And yes, indeed, what happened was plutonium was dispersed over 895 acres, just a little bit north of Groom Lake at Area 51. And as we know, plutonium has a half-life of 24,000 years. So there was Richard Mingus keeping watch over this mock dirty bomb test. That land was contaminated, and it is also still contaminated today, despite ongoing efforts to clean it up.
How is Area 51 used today, Annie Jacobsen?
Well, everything that I write about today that's going on there is speculative, because it's all still classified top secret. What is assumed and known among sources who used to be there is that the Predator and the Reaper drones have been flown out there. The government is testing new espionage platforms. And what I found to be fascinating, if you look at the whole history of Area 51, it began with, as I said earlier, you know, the Atomic Energy Commission and the Department of Defense on one side of the fence practicing how to have a war, and the CIA on the other side of the fence working as eyes in the sky, it's called, when you are able to spy on the enemy so as to prevent a war. But now these two ideas have merged in drones, because the espionage vehicles now have weapons on them. They have missiles. And so you have these two services coming together. And of course, it's very interesting that the former director of the CIA is now over at the Department of Defense.
Annie Jacobsen, we're going to have to leave it there, but we're going to continue after the broadcast at democracynow.org. People can check it out. Annie Jacobsen, author of Area 51.